Mate, let me tell you about the bloody joyride that is driving on Alligator Alley. Now, I know it's a major highway that stretches from the east coast of Florida to the west, but let's be honest here, it's pretty much just a long, boring stretch of road with not much to see except for a few gators sunning themselves on the side of the road. And let's not forget about the tolls. You can pretty much kiss your wallet goodbye as you cough up coin after coin just to stay on this highway. It's like the bloody government wants to charge you for the privilege of driving in a straight line for hours on end. But the real fun starts when you hit some traffic, mate. And let me tell you, there's nothing like being stuck in a queue of cars for hours on end with nothing to do but stare at the ass of the car in front of you. Oh, and don't forget about the heat. Mate, it's like being in a bloody sauna with wheels. And if you're lucky enough to be driving during rainy season, you'll get to experience the joys of hydroplaning on a highway surrounded by water and gators. Nothing like a bit of danger to spice up your commute, right? But hey, if you're into a bit of adventure and enjoy staring at gators, Alligator Alley might be just the highway for you. Just make sure you pack a good playlist, a full tank of gas, and some snacks, because you're in for one hell of a ride. Mate, the highway that's about as exciting as a wet weekend in way. This stretch of road may be a major thoroughfare between the east and west coast of Florida, but let's face it, it's as dull as dishwater. Sure, you might catch a glimpse of a few crocs lounging on the side of the road, but is that really worth the tolls you'll have to fork over? You'll be plonking down more coin than you can shake a didgeridoo just to drive on this bloody highway. And let's not forget about the traffic, mate. You'll be bumper to bumper with more cars than you can poke a stick at. And all you'll be able to do is gaze at the back side of the car in front of you. And don't even get me started on the humidity. It's like driving through a bloody sauna. And if you're feeling lucky, you might get to experience the joys of driving through a thunderstorm, complete with enough water to make a platypus drown. Oh, and did I mention the gators? Yeah, they'll be lurking in the water next to you, just waiting for you to slip up and take a dip. But hey, if you're keen for a real thrill ride, Alligator Alley might just be the ticket. Just be sure to bring some snags for a barbie, because you'll be on this highway for longer than you can say crikey. Mate, let me regale you with the fascinating history of Alligator Alley, if you can keep your eyes open, that is. This highway was built back in the day as a way to connect the east and west coasts of Florida, and I reckon it's been about as popular as a drop bear at a picnic ever since. They named it Alligator Alley because, surprise surprise, there were a few gators hanging around the area. But honestly, who gives a toss? I mean, we've got crocs up north that could swallow those little buggers whole for breakfast. Anyways, the road's been through a few changes over the years, including adding some toll booths that'll make your wallet lighter than a feather. And let's not forget the various accidents and mishaps that have happened on this stretch of tarmac. It's like a magnet for dummies who can't drive straight. But hey, at least the view is worth it, right? I mean, if you like looking at grass and trees and more bloody grass, and if you're lucky, you might catch a glimpse of a road kangaroo or two. So, all in all, Alligator Alley is a real must-see if you're into being bored out of your skull. Let's get one thing straight, gators and crocs are about as similar as Vegemite and Marmite. Sure, they both look like prehistoric nightmares and could tear your arm off quicker than you can say struth, but there are some major differences between the two. For starters, crocs are much more aggressive and have been known to chow down on a few unlucky tourists who got too close. Gators, on the other hand, are more like lazy buggers who just want to nap in the sun all day. Crocs also have a longer snout and a V-shaped head, while gators have a wider snout and a U-shaped head. And if you're really curious, you can check out their teeth. Crocs have teeth that stick out, while gator teeth are more hidden away. But let's be honest, if you're in Australia, you've got bigger things to worry about than gators and crocs. We've got salties that could swallow a croc whole and drop bears that'll make you wish you never left the city. So if you're worried about gators and crocs, you might want to stay home and cuddle a koala instead. Now, you might think that these gators are causing chaos left and right, but honestly, you've got more chance of getting struck by lightning than getting chomped on by a gator. According to the stats, there are only about 20 to 30 alligator attacks in the US each year, which is bugger all when you consider how many people live there. And even then, most of those attacks happen in Florida, which is pretty much gator central. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be careful around these critters. They can still mess you up pretty bad if you're not paying attention. But let's be real here, if you're getting attacked by a gator, it's probably because you were doing something bloody stupid, like trying to pet it or take a selfie. And let's not forget, we've got plenty of our own deadly animals to worry about down here in Australia. I mean, Have you ever heard of a box jellyfish or a blue-ringed octopus? Those little buggers will make a gator look like a teddy bear. So if you're worried about alligator attacks, just remember, it's a bloody cakewalk compared to what we've got down under. A's talk about the Everglades, or as Iggy Azalea would say, the mudder business of Florida. This place is wilder than a kangaroo on a bender, I tell ya what. First off, we've got the fancy wildlife, alligators, panthers, and snakes that'll make your blood run cold. And let's not forget about the mosquitoes. They're as thick as thieves out there. You'll need more bug spray than a bloke at a barbie. But even with all the dangers, the Everglades are still a work of natural beauty. The swamps and marshes are as green as a goanna's bum, and the wildlife is more diverse than a Bondi Beach party. And if you're lucky, you might even catch a glimpse of the Black Widow herself, the elusive Florida panther. But don't be fooled by all the glamour and glitz. The Everglades can be a trouble spot if you're not careful. It's easy to get lost in the maze of swamps and rivers, and there's no shortage of predators waiting to pounce. So if you're heading out into the mudder business of the Everglades, make sure you're prepared and watch your step. Let's take a gander at the history of the Everglades, shall we? This place has a ripper story to tell, mate. First off, the indigenous folks of Florida, the Seminoles, have been living in these swamps and marshes for thousands of years. They knew how to crook the elbow with the alligators and panthers, and they lived off the land like true blue Aussies. But then along came the European settlers, and they were more confused than a wombat in a washing machine about what to do with the Everglades. They tried to drain the swamps and turn it into farmland, but that just caused all sorts of problems, from flooding to wildfires. Then in the 20th century, the government got involved and started building canals and levees to try and control the water flow. But that just led to even more problems, like the loss of natural habitats and the decline of wildlife populations. Nowadays, the Everglades are a fair dinkum national treasure, and folks are doing their best to look after the old girl. There are conservation efforts to restore the natural water flow, and plenty of ecotourism opportunities to educate folks about this unique ecosystem. It's not always been a walk in the park, but we Aussies know a thing or two about roughing it in the bush. The infamous Alligator Alley, where the gators are as common as flies on a BBQ. It's not just a scenic drive, mate, it's also got a fair share of fair dinkum incidents that make for some interesting yarns. One of the most wackadoo stories involves a group of folks who were driving on Alley and got attacked by a swarm of love bugs. These little critters may seem harmless, but they can get on your nerves like a mosquito at a barbie. The bugs were so thick that they covered the entire windshield and made it impossible to see where they were going. It was like driving through a fog as thick as Vegemite. Then there's the tale of the roo on the loose. Yes, a kangaroo on the Alligator Alley. Now, I know what you're thinking, mate, there ain't no kangaroos in Florida. But somehow, this little fella made his way over and caused quite the stir on the road. It's not every day you see a marsupial hopping down the freeway like he owns the joint. And let's not forget about the occasional roadblock caused by gators crossing the road. They may seem slow and lazy, but those reptiles can be quite the bludger when they want to be. It's a reminder that we Aussies aren't the only ones who have to watch out for wildlife on the roads. All in all, driving on Alligator Alley is like a jolly good adventure. You never know what kind of shenanigans you'll encounter along the way. The weather on Alligator Alley can be hotter than a Sheila in a sauna. The sun can be a real bastard, and it's not uncommon to feel like you're roasting like a duck on a spit. If you're not careful, you'll end up with a sunburn that's redder than a lobster's ass. And if you thought the heat was bad, just wait until you hit a summer storm. The rain can come down so hard and fast that it feels like you're driving through a shower as heavy as a cattle station downpour. The lightning can be scary as a drop bear, and the wind can be strong enough to blow the socks off a dingo. But don't think it's all hot and humid on the alley. In the winter, the temperature can drop quicker than a possum up a gum tree. You'll need a good jacket to keep you warm because the wind chill can be colder than a witch's tit. So there you have it, mate. The weather on Alligator Alley can be as unpredictable as a swagman's dream. Just be sure to pack for all seasons and watch out for those summer storms. Let me sing you a bit of Rick Springfield while we talk about Alligator Alley. I've been driving on Alligator Alley trying to get to my destination, but those gators and those storms keep getting in my way, and I'm starting to feel some frustration. You see, Alligator Alley can be a real S show. Between the gators, the storms, and the traffic, it can be a real pain in the ass. It's like a never-ending road to nowhere. But hey, at least we can sing some Rick Springfield to pass the time, right? I've been driving on Alligator Alley all day long. Who would win in a fight? Crocodile Dundee or 1974's Burt Reynolds? Mate, that's a tough one to answer. On one hand, you've got Crocodile Dundee, a true blue Aussie legend who can wrangle crocs and handle a knife like it's nothing. On the other hand, you've got Burt Reynolds in his prime, a smooth-talking Hollywood stud who's no stranger to a fist fight or two. Now, if it was a straight-up croc wrestling contest, I reckon Dundee would have the upper hand. But if it was a bare-knuckle brawl, I reckon Reynolds might have the edge. He's got that stash, after all, and you know what they say about a man with a good moustache. But at the end of the day, it's all just a bit of fun, ain't it? We don't need to be taking it too seriously. Let's crack open a few cold ones and have a good old chinwag about it instead. Cheers, mate. That's like asking me whether Vegemite or Tim Tams are better. There's no clear winner. But if you want my opinion, I reckon Mad Max is the superior flick. I mean, it's got everything you could want in an Aussie movie: fast cars, post-apocalyptic wastelands, and a bloke with a sawn-off shotgun. And let's not forget old Mel Gibson in his prime. What a legend. Now, Smokey and the Bandit ain't half bad either, but it's more of a southern USA kind of flick. Sure, it's got Burt Reynolds and his fancy Trans Am, but it can't compare to the raw Aussie power of Mad Max. But hey, that's just my 2 cents. At the end of the day, it's all subjective, innit? As long as you're having a good time watching movies, that's all that matters. Bloody hell, sorry if I went a bit overboard with the cheers, mate there. Didn't mean to come across as too bloody friendly. Now did I? I guess I just got a bit carried away with me Aussie spirit and all that. But hey, no worries, mate. It's all good fun, isn't it? I'll try to rein it in a bit and give ya a fair dinkum apology. How's that sound? Well, I come from a land down under where the alligators and crocs will make ya wonder where the road's called Alligator Alley and the sun beats down like a bloody sledgehammer. Golly, can't you hear? Can't you hear the thunder? Ya better take cover, or the gators will drag ya under. Oh, you better run. You better take cover on Alligator Alley, where the gators and crocs rule like a boss and the heat never gets much colder. Yeah, it's a bloody wild place, Alligator Alley, but we Aussies are tough. We can handle it daily, so come on down. Give it a go, just don't get too close to those bloody gators. Ya know, why did the alligator cross the road? To get to the other swamp. Why do so many retirees move to Florida? They heard it's the only place where they can blend in with the scenery. What's the difference between an alligator and a Florida driver? Not much. They both like to tailgate. Why did the man go to the Florida theme park? To ride the alligator coaster? Of course. Why did the Australian avoid Florida? He heard they had crocs, and he didn't want to get them confused with his beloved thongs. Why did the Florida man keep a can of Raid in his car? To keep the love bugs away. Why don't Florida residents ever have to buy sandpaper? Because they can just rub their skin against the palm trees to exfoliate. Why did the Floridian go to the chiropractor? To get their alligator wrestling injury looked at. Why did the Australian man move to Florida? Because he wanted to see how long it would take for him to become a lobster. What's the difference between a Florida summer and a sauna? In the sauna, you're allowed to leave. Let's talk about the elderly in Florida. Now, we all know that Florida is where old folks go to retire and soak up the sun like a bunch of lizards on a rock. These old codgers love their early bird specials, bingo nights, and shuffleboard tournaments. You'll see them cruising down the streets in their golf carts, wearing their Hawaiian shirts and visors, looking like a bunch of bananas. And don't even get me started on their driving skills. They're about as sharp as a beach ball. But hey, you gotta give them credit for still going strong in their golden years. They're a tough bunch, surviving the heat, hurricanes, and alligator attacks. And when it comes to telling stories about their youth, they've got enough material to keep you listening for days. So, next time you're in Florida, keep an eye out for these senior citizens. They might not move fast, but they sure know how to enjoy the retired life. If you're looking for a fair dinkum review of Caddyshack, you've come to the right bloke. Let me tell ya, this flick's got more swings and misses than a drunken kangaroo on a golf course. First off, the characters are more confusing than a dingo in Pet Store. You got Rodney Dangerfield playing some rich tosser with a mouth like a broken shower head, Chevy Chase rocking the dad bod and trying to be all smooth, and Bill Murray is some weirdo groundskeeper with a serious case of the shanks. And don't even get me started on the plot. It's thinner than a slice of Vegemite on a cracker. Something about a gopher causing havoc on the golf course, but it's all just an excuse for the actors to act like gallows and make stupid jokes. Sure, there are some decent laughs here and there, like when Dangerfield gets in a stoush with the judge or when Murray goes all psycho with a weed whacker. But overall, Caddyshack is about as funny as a dropped meat pie. So, if you're keen on wasting a couple of hours of your life, go ahead and watch Caddyshack. But if you're looking for a real comedy, I suggest you chuck on a DVD of The Castle instead. Trust me, it's bonza. If there's one thing that's more useless than a screen door on a submarine, it's Caddyshack 2. I tell ya what, I wish I could take a flying leap off Uluru and erase that flick from my memory. I mean, who in their right mind thought it was a good idea to make a sequel to a movie that was already as crook as a dog's hind leg? They must have been as thick as a brick. Or maybe they were just trying to make a quick quid. And let's talk about the cast. You got Jackie Mason as some rich prick trying to buy the golf course, Dan Aykroyd as a nutcase golf pro, and Robert Stack as the straight-laced judge. The only thing missing is a bloke dressed up like a drop bear. But the real kicker is the jokes. They're as lame as a three-legged emu. The only thing that's even remotely funny is seeing Chevy Chase for about 2 seconds before he disappears like a dingo in a thunderstorm. I tell ya what, I wish I had never laid eyes on Caddyshack 2. It's about as enjoyable as getting bitten by a bull, and if you're thinking of watching it, don't say I didn't warn ya. You'd be better off staring at a blank wall for an hour and a half. If you're thinking the Everglades and the Outback are anything alike, you're as clueless as a possum up a gum tree. They're about as different as a dingo and a croc. First off, the Everglades are wetter than a drover's dog's chin. It's all swamps and marshes and mangroves. You got critters like alligators and pythons slithering around everywhere, waiting to chow down on some poor unsuspecting tourist. Now, the Outback, on the other hand, is drier than a dead dingo's donga. It's a big, bloody desert, with nothing but sand and rocks as far as the eye can see. You got roos and emus bouncing around, and maybe a few snakes and scorpions if you're unlucky. In the Everglades, you can paddle a canoe through the muck and hope you don't get eaten alive. In the Outback, you can drive for days without seeing another soul, and hope your car doesn't break down or you'll be up the creek without a paddle. So, to sum it up, the Everglades are like a sauna on steroids, and the Outback is like an oven on high. They're both beautiful in their own way, but they're about as similar as Vegemite and peanut butter. Listen up, Florida man, because I'm about to give you a serve. You're acting like a gala and making us Aussies look bad. First off, what's with all the crazy stunts? You're as reckless as a drop bear on a sugar high, jumping off bridges, wrestling gators, and sticking your head in the mouth of a croc. Are you trying to win some kind of Darwin award or what? And don't get me started on the crime. You're nicking stuff left and right, like a magpie with shiny things, breaking into people's homes, stealing cars, and causing all kinds of mayhem. You're a real bludger, and you're making the rest of us Aussies look like a bunch of drongos. But the worst part is the way you treat wildlife. You're as cruel as a cut snake, feeding seagulls with fireworks, shooting endangered species, and driving boats over manatees? That's not cool, mate. It's downright un-Australian. So, here's my message to you, Florida man. Pull your head in. You're acting like a total wanker, and it's time to grow up. Stop being a liability and start being a decent bloke. Otherwise, you'll be as popular as a fart in a spacesuit. Alright, Florida man, I reckon it's time we had a fair dinkum chat. I know I gave you a bit of a spray earlier, but let's put that behind us and have a yarn. I mean, sure, you're a bit of a larrikin. You're always getting up to shenanigans and making headlines for all the wrong reasons. But you know what? I can respect that. You're living life to the fullest, and that's not something to be scoffed at. And yeah, maybe some of the stuff you do is a bit bonkers. Jumping out of planes and swimming with sharks? That's not exactly what I'd call sensible. But you know what? It takes guts to do that stuff, and I can appreciate that. And as for the wildlife stuff, well, maybe I was a bit harsh. I know you Americans aren't used to dealing with the kind of critters we have down under. Maybe you just need a bit of education about what's cool and what's not. So, here's my olive branch. Mate, let's have a coldie and a snag and bury the hatchet. We're both just trying to have a good time in this crazy world, and there's no reason we can't get along like a house on fire. Just remember, though, no more feeding fireworks to seagulls. That's not on, and it's guaranteed to give you a bad reputation. Other than that, you're alright in my book. Cheers, mate. The humble trolley. It's as Aussie as a snag on the Barbie, but for some reason, you Yanks insist on calling it a shopping cart. What gives? Well, let me tell you, it's not just a matter of different words for the same thing. The trolley is a true blue Aussie icon, and it deserves a bit of respect. First off, calling it a cart makes it sound like something out of the Old West, like you're going to hitch up your horse and ride off into the sunset with your load of groceries. But a trolley, that's a modern invention, mate. It's a technological marvel that makes shopping a breeze. And let's not forget the versatility of the trolley. It's not just for carrying groceries. You know, you can load up all kinds of stuff on there. Tools, plants, furniture, you name it. It's like a portable storage unit that you can push around. Plus, there's the fact that the trolley is an important part of our Aussie culture. You haven't lived until you've played trolley dodgems in the car park, or ridden down a hill on a trolley like a dinky-dee daredevil. So, yeah, I call it a trolley, and I'm not ashamed of it. It's a part of who I am, and I'll defend it like a true blue Aussie. If you can't handle that, well, I guess you're as lost as a bush turkey in a shopping center. So, I recently took a trip to the land of the free and the home of the brave, and let me tell you, It was a ripper of a time. I'm talking about Disney World, of course, the place where dreams come true and your wallet gets lighter. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit skeptical at first. I mean, I'm a fair dinkum Aussie bloke. What do I know about cartoon characters and theme parks? But I got to admit, Disney World won me over. First off, the place is huge. It's like a whole other world, with rides and attractions as far as the eye can see. And let me tell you, the crowds are as thick as flies on a dunny wall. You gotta be quick to get on those rides, or you'll be stuck in line like a gala. But once you're on the rides, mate, it's a whole different story. You're twisting and turning and screaming like a banshee. And the theming? It's like you're living in a fairy tale. You've got castles and pirates and talking animals all around you. And the food? Oh boy, they've got more snacks than you can poke a stick at. Churros, Dole Whips, turkey legs as big as your head. It's like a smorgasbord of sugary goodness. So, yeah, I gotta say, Disney World won me over. It's not exactly my idea of a traditional Aussie holiday, but sometimes you gotta step out of your comfort zone and try something new. And if that means spending a day with Mickey Mouse and his mates, well, I'm alright with that. Alligator Alley, eh? That's the stretch of road in Florida that runs through the Everglades, right? Well, let me tell you, mate, that place is like something out of Mad Max. I mean, first off, you've got the alligators. They're as common as kangaroos on the side of the road. And let me tell you, you don't want to mess with those buggers. They're as mean as a cut snake and twice as deadly. Then you've got the heat. It's like driving through the Outback in the middle of summer. Your car's aircon is working overtime just to keep you from melting like a paddle pop. And the roads themselves, mate, they're rougher than a dunny brush. Potholes and bumps and cracks as far as the eye can see. It's like a 4x4 paradise. But for the rest of us, it's like driving on a corrugated iron roof. But hey, you gotta give the Yanks credit. They've managed to turn Alligator Alley into a bit of a tourist attraction. They've got airboats and alligator shows and all sorts of other gimmicks. It's like a redneck theme park. So, if you're looking for a bit of adventure, and you're not afraid of a few scaly critters, then Alligator Alley might be right up your alley. Just make sure you bring plenty of sunscreen and a sense of humor, because it's a wild ride, mate. Alligator Alley, eh? It's like that bit from Crocodile Dundee where he says, "That's not a knife, this is a knife." Except in Alligator Alley, it's more like, "That's not a croc, this is a croc." I mean, you've got alligators as big as a dunny door, just lounging around like they own the place. And let me tell you, they're not exactly friendly. They're more like saltwater crocs, always looking for their next feed. But hey, we Aussies know a thing or two about dealing with dangerous critters, right? I mean, we've got snakes and spiders and drop bears, for crying out loud. So, when it comes to alligators, we're practically experts. And Alligator Alley itself, it's like the Wild West, but with more humidity. You've got cowboys and pickup trucks, tearing down the road like they're in a car chase from Mad Max. And the heat? It's like a wall of fire, mate. But, hey, I'm not gonna lie. There's a certain charm to Alligator Alley. It's like a bit of the Outback in the heart of America. And if you're looking for a bit of adventure, it's definitely worth a visit. Just make sure you've got your wits about you, and don't go poking any crocs with a stick. That's just asking for trouble. Now here's a hot take for you, mates. Why should Paul Hogan be the president of Australia? Well, let me tell you, he's got more charisma and charm than a wallaby on a trampoline. I mean, the bloke is practically a national icon. He's Crocodile Dundee, for crying out loud. He's fought off crocs and dodged bullets and stolen hearts all over the world. If that's not presidential material, I don't know what is. And let's be honest, we could use a bit of that Hollywood magic in our politics, couldn't we? Imagine the G20 summit, with Paul Hogan striding in, throwing shrimp on the barbie and cracking jokes with Putin and Merkel. It'd be a bloody ripper. But it's not just about the image, mate. Hogan's a straight shooter, a man of the people. He's been through the ringer himself, with tax scandals and personal dramas, and he's come out the other side with his head held high. That's the kind of resilience we need in our leaders. Sure, some might say he's a bit of a larrikin, not exactly the polished politician type, but I reckon that's exactly what we need. Someone who's not afraid to speak his mind, who's not bound by political correctness or stuffy traditions. Someone who can cut through the bull and get things done. So, there you have it, mates. Paul Hogan for president. I reckon it's a bloody bonza idea. Alright, fair dinkum. I've had it up to here with these bloody Australian stereotypes. You know the ones I'm talking about. Kangaroos hopping down the street, shrimp on the barbie, throwing another shrimp on the barbie, like we're all a bunch of bloody bogans who don't know any better. Well, let me tell you, it's not all like that. We're not all out here in the bush, drinking tinnies and wrestling crocs. We've got cities and suburbs and shopping malls and Netflix, just like the rest of the world. And don't even get me started on the accent. Sure, we've got a bit of a twang, but it's not like we're all talking like Steve Irwin or Crocodile Dundee. We've got regional accents and variations, just like any other country. And let's talk about those bloody animals, eh? Yes, we've got kangaroos and koalas and all that, but we've also got a whole range of other wildlife that doesn't get the same attention, like echidnas and quokkas and goannas. And yeah, we've got some dangerous critters, but we also know how to avoid them and live alongside them without getting bitten or stung. So, next time you're thinking of Australia, maybe try and look beyond the stereotypes, eh? We're a diverse and complex country, with a rich culture and history, and we're sick of being reduced to caricatures and cliches. Alright, you blokes and Sheilas, let's get ready to rock and roll with some good old Aussie classics. I'm talking about AC/DC and their legendary hit, Hell's Bells. But this time, I'm gonna put my own spin on it and give it an Alligator Alley twist. Clear's throat. I'm driving down the alley. It's a steamy day, my tires screech as I hit the way the gators snap their jaws. The snakes they hiss, this ain't no place for a weak-hearted piss. Hell's Bells. I'm on Alligator Alley. Hell's Bells. It's a crazy rally. Hell's Bells. The critters, they're all around. Hell's Bells. You better watch the ground. The panthers stalk their prey. The vultures fly. The heat and sweat make you feel like you're gonna die, but you keep on driving, with a grin on your face, cause this is the Aussie way. We embrace the chase. Hell's Bells. It's a Florida fever. Hell's Bells. You gotta be a believer. Hell's Bells. You might just lose your mind. Hell's Bells. But you'll have one hell of a time. So, if you're feeling bored and need a thrill, hop on down to Alligator Alley. If you will, just don't forget to bring your courage and your wit, cause you'll need it, mate, to survive this crazy pit. Hell's Bells. I'm on Alligator Alley. Hell's Bells. It's a wild and woolly valley. Hell's Bells. The adventure's just begun. Hell's Bells. Let's rock and have some fun. I'm gonna give you the lowdown on Broward County, Florida. Now, I know what you're thinking. Broward County? What the heck is that? Well, let me tell you. It's a land of sun, sand, and some pretty wacky characters. Here are some facts to prove it. Broward County is named after Napoleon Bonaparte Broward, a former governor of Florida who was famous for draining the Everglades and making way for more development. Talk about a bold move, mate. The county is home to Fort Lauderdale, which is often called the Venice of America because of its extensive system of canals. But don't let the fancy nickname fool you. There are plenty of rough and tumble spots in town. Broward County is also known for its beaches, which attract millions of visitors each year. But watch out for those jellyfish and sand fleas. They can be a real pain in the ass. The county has a large population of retirees, who come for the warm weather and the affordable living. But they also like to keep things interesting with their wild parties and off-color jokes. They might be old, but they're still young at heart. Those old buggers. Broward County is a hub of arts and culture, with numerous museums, theaters, and galleries. But if you're looking for some real Aussie culture, you might be out of luck. There's not a meat pie or a VB in sight, mate. So there you have it. Some quick facts about Broward County. Whether you're looking for dishes, boats, or bingo nights, you'll find it all here. Just don't forget to bring your sunscreen and your sense of humor. You'll need both in this wacky corner of the world. Cheers. I've got some totally useless, but entertaining, facts for you about the number of episodes of Cops that were filmed in our lovely state. So grab yourself a cold one and let's dive in. According to my research, a whopping 259 episodes of Cops were filmed in Florida. That's more than any other state in the US. Looks like we've got a lot of interesting characters and shenanigans going on down here. The first episode of Cops filmed in Florida aired in 1989 and featured officers from the Fort Lauderdale Police Department. And let me tell you, it was a wild ride from the start. Some of the other law enforcement agencies featured on Cops in Florida include the Miami Police Department, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, and the St. Petersburg Police Department. Those coppers sure do have their hands full in this state. The show has featured a variety of Florida-related incidents, including drug busts, high-speed chases, and even alligator encounters. Yep, you heard me right, alligator encounters. Crikey, those beasts are everywhere in this state. And just when you thought it couldn't get any better, Cops has even filmed in some of our most iconic cities, like Miami, Orlando, and Tampa. It's like watching a real-life version of GTA. So there you have it, folks. Some totally useless facts about the number of episodes of Cops filmed in Florida. Who needs a history lesson when you can learn about all the crazy stuff that goes on down here? Am I right? Cheers. I'm gonna give you my take on GTA 5, the game that's got all of America running around like a bunch of books with their heads cut off. So strap yourselves in, because this review is gonna be more entertaining than a Barbie on Australia Day. First off, Let me just say that this game is as mad as a cut snake. The storyline is full of twists and turns that'll leave you feeling more confused than a bandicoot in a pet store. But if you're into high-speed car chases, gun battles, and blowing stuff up, then this game is right up your alley. The graphics are top-notch, and the attention to detail is spot on. You can practically feel the heat radiating off the pavement as you cruise down the streets of Los Santos. And speaking of cruising, the variety of cars in this game is bloody unreal. From classic muscle cars to sleek supercars, you'll feel like you're behind the wheel of a different vehicle every time you play. The characters are a real mixed bag, too. You've got your standard hard-ass criminals, but then you've also got some real characters, like Trevor, who's madder than a cut snake on a hot tin roof. And let's not forget about Michael, who's a bit of a bloody legend if you ask me. The only downside to this game is that it can get a bit repetitive. I mean, how many times can you rob a bank before it starts feeling like a bit of a yawn fest? But with the online multiplayer mode, you can team up with your mates and wreak havoc on the streets of Los Santos together. Overall, I'd say this game is a ripper. It's not for the faint of heart, but if you're looking for some good old-fashioned Aussie-style mayhem, then you can't go wrong with GTA 5. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm off to blow up some cop cars. If you're looking to quench your thirst with a good old-fashioned Foster's beer in Broward County, you're as rare as hen's teeth. I mean, let's be honest here. Foster's is about as Australian as a dingo wearing a sombrero. But if you're dead set on getting your hands on a Foster's, your best bet is to hit up one of the big chain stores like Total Wine and More or ABC Fine Wine and Spirits. They might have a couple of dusty bottles hidden away somewhere in the back, but don't hold your breath. Now, if you're looking for a real Aussie brew, you gotta try something like Victoria Bitter or XXXX Gold. They're as true blue as a meat pie and a schooner at the footy. You might have better luck finding those at a local bottle-o or pub. But let me tell ya, mate, the best way to get your Aussie fix is to head down to the beach with a few of your mates and crack open a cold one while you watch the waves roll in. It doesn't get more fair dinkum than that, I reckon. So, there you have it. If you're determined to get your hands on a Foster's, you might have a bit of trouble in Broward County, but don't let that stop you from enjoying a cold beer with your mates. After all, it's all about the good times and the good vibes. Am I right? Well, strike me lucky. If you're looking for famous people in Broward County, you might be out of luck. This place ain't exactly Hollywood, if you catch my drift. But if you're looking for a few folks who might be well known round these parts, you might want to check out some of the local sports heroes. We've got Dan Marino, who's about as legendary as a drop bear in the NFL. And Dwayne Wade, who's done more for the Miami Heat than a snag on the Barbie at a backyard Barbie. There's also some politicians who've made a name for themselves, like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's as polarizing as Vegemite on toast, and Marco Rubio, who's as ambitious as a kangaroo on a trampoline. And let's not forget about some of the local business tycoons, like Wayne Huizinga, who's made more dough than a bakery on Anzac Des, or H. Wayne Huizinga Jr., who's followed in his father's footsteps and is as rich as a Bondi Beach lifeguard. But honestly, mate, if you're looking for famous people, you might want to set your sights a bit higher than Broward County. We're more about the laid-back lifestyle and the sunny beaches than the glitz and glamour of Tinseltown. But hey, that's just how we roll down under. Let me tell ya, if there's one thing us Aussies know a thing or two about, it's utes. And I reckon they'd be right at home here in the good old US of A. First off, let's talk about their practicality. These bad boys are tough as nails and can handle anything from hauling a load of wood for your backyard deck to taking the family to the beach for a barbie. They're like the Swiss Army knife of vehicles, but with more horsepower than a pack of wild stallions. But it's not just about functionality, it's about style too. Utes are as Aussie as a meat pie at the footy, and they've got that rugged, no-nonsense look that'll turn heads faster than a cane toad in a swimming pool. They're the perfect mix of form and function, and let's face it, who doesn't love a bit of practicality with a side of good looks? Now, some folks might argue that we don't need utes in the US because we've got trucks and SUVs, but let me tell ya, those things are like a drop bear on petrol. They're big, bulky, and not exactly built for the city slicker lifestyle. Utes, on the other hand, are the perfect size for cruising around town or hitting up the back roads for a bit of off-roading. So there you have it, folks. Utes might be a bit of a foreign concept to you Yanks, but trust me, once you get a taste of that Aussie grit and style, you'll wonder how you ever lived without them. If it ain't the famous Alligator Alley, a true slice of Florida's Outback. You know what they say, mate, if you're gonna take a trip down that way, you better be prepared to rock and roll, cause that road is like a highway to hell. Living easy, living free, season ticket on a one-way ride asking nothing. Leave me be, taking everything in my stride, don't need reason, don't need rhyme, Ain't nothing that I'd rather do going down. Party time. My friends are gonna be there too. And let me tell ya, when I say party time, I mean it in the truest sense of the word. Alligator Alley is like a wild rodeo, with gators snapping at your heels and the heat beating down on ya like a relentless didgeridoo. But hey, that's just part of the fun, right? I'm on the highway to hell, on the highway to hell, highway to hell, I'm on the highway to hell. So if you're feeling a bit adventurous and want to take a trip down Alligator Alley, just remember to bring your sense of humor and a few cold ones, cause you're in for a wild ride. But don't worry, mate, you'll come out the other side with some stories to tell and a newfound appreciation for the Aussie way of life. Oh mate, don't get me started on Rusty Crowe. He's a true blue Aussie legend and he's made us all proud. I mean, who else could pull off being a gladiator and a singing cowboy, eh? But let me tell ya, seeing him go Hollywood has been a bit emotional for us Aussies. It's like watching your own kid leave the nest. Ya know, he's still one of our own, but he's flown off to bigger and better things. But hey, we'll always have a special place in our hearts for Rusty. He's a bit of a larrikin, but he's got a heart of gold. And let's face it, he's still one of the best things to come out of Australia since Vegemite. So here's to you, Rusty. You might be a bit of a Yank now, but you'll always be a true blue Aussie in our hearts. Burt Reynolds, the ultimate Hollywood larrikin. Now, when it comes to his movies, there are some ripper flicks and some duds that'll make you want to crack a teeny. Let's start with the best. Number 1 on my list is Smokey and the Bandit. I mean, who doesn't love watching Burt outrun the cops in a kick-ass Trans Am? Classic Aussie car chase action, right there. Next up, we've got Deliverance. Now, it's not exactly a fun-filled romp, but it's a damn good movie. Burt's performance as the tough guy Lewis is top-notch, and that banjo scene, bloody brilliant. And who could forget the cannonball run? It's got Burt, Dom DeLuise, and a bunch of other famous faces tearing up the roads in some sweet cars. It's like Mad Max, but with more laughs and less leather. Now, on to the worst. First up, we've got Cop and a Half. Yeah, it's as bad as it sounds. Burt plays a cop who teams up with a kid to solve a crime. Crikey, it's painful to watch. And then there's striptease. Look, I don't mind a bit of nudity as much as the next bloke, but this movie is just plain cringeworthy. Burt plays a sleazy strip club owner and let's just say it's not his finest hour. So there you have it, mate. Burt Reynolds' best and worst movies. But no matter what, he'll always be a legend in our book.
you.